podcast, Creative Full Time, where we interview people in the entertainment industry and find out how they're doing the damn thing here in Canada. Today's guest has a very unique story. She moved to Canada in 2020.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'll just make sure I got the year right. 2020, mid-pandemic from Switzerland, and has been attacking the Canadian entertainment industry ever since. She's a cop turned actor. This woman is a star, whether it's gracing the theater stage in an ensemble, writing, directing, and performing her own one-woman play, or starring as a lead in the indie horror film Invited. She has done it all in such a short amount of time. Please welcome my guest today, Martina Schabron.
Oh. We should have worked on the pronunciation, but yes, hello, thank you.
No, that's how I'm going to say it.
Schabron.
You gotta give
Sounds
it that
very violent.
Fine. Schabron.
There we go.
Make it a little more romantic.
Yes, please.
Schabron.
Mm-hmm.
Martina Schabron.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am well.
Excellent.
Yes. How about you?
I'm great. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on my podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
So I like to start at the beginning of when the dream struck. So when did you decide or know that you wanted to pursue acting?
It's that usual story. When I was really young, I remember dancing around in our house. We lived in New York for a couple years, and I had some kind of performance. I was playing my flute, and I was running around the house in my little cowboy boots, and I could not wait to get on that stage. I was so excited.
Aww.
And I don't know, I love to entertain people, and I love to make people laugh, and that was kind of the moment, yeah. But I didn't get back to that until a lot later.
And why is that?
Well, life.
Jumping forward. A few years.
Yeah, just a few. No, I did. I was a competitive swimmer, so we never really had time for anything else. I mean, we trained up to 10 times a week, so that kind of took up all the time in addition to school. And I remember being so jealous of a few kids in my high school class who were doing drama. They were doing some plays, and I was like, sitting in the audience, I was like, that should be me.
Straight.
Yeah, and then I had to go to practice. That just kind of never happened. And then I went to university here at U of T, and I started taking acting classes once I quit swimming at a studio downtown, and it kind of just cracked my heart open, for lack of a better way to put it. You know, it was just the most fun thing. Yeah, it was just the most fun thing to do. And then, yeah, I went back home after I graduated, and then I became a cop, and then I had shift work and no time for anything acting related, or just it wasn't, easy to combine the two. And they don't really have studios, or they didn't back then, where you can just take classes, drop in classes. We didn't have that in Switzerland at the time, at least that I was aware of. And so it took me a while to get into like community theater once I had a more regular schedule.
Right.
And then I didn't do it professionally until we moved over here.
Crazy.
That's when I started. The pandemic, thank good. I mean, that really opened it up for me, because I was able to take classes online with studios, in LA and New York and Atlanta. And I was so excited to finally be able to, start pursuing it more seriously.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you find those online classes? Did you just search on social medias or certain websites?
Well, through extended family, I know Chloe O'Flair, who's in Actin Everywhere, is her coaching company, acting coaching company, and she started during the pandemic, started offering classes online, and she's based in Europe. Basically, she was in New York for a very long time, and now she's all over Europe. And so I started taking classes through her, and I really liked it. Like everyone, I was like, how is this going to be on Zoom?
Yeah.
It's going to be weird. How do you connect with your partner? I don't know how this works. And I started trying it out, and I really enjoyed it. And it was cool because I could do scenes with people all over Europe and the US and all over the world, really. And And then I started looking into other studios, and I knew that eventually I would want to go to the US because I am half American. I knew that it made the most sense, in terms of like the markets and the industry. And so I started looking around on Instagram. I mean, there's a million different ways to find acting classes on there.
That's true.
And I just kind of looked, what are the most popular ones? What are the ones that make sense? And so it kind of thinking about making connections in the different markets, I started looking at bigger studios and then took some classes, and it just kind of went from there.
Okay, nice. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Wicked. So you were a cop for how many years?
Including the year of training, 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And you're right, like shift work is a hard thing to work around with.
Yes.
Acting, which is like, we need you tomorrow.
Yeah.
You're like, okay.
Exactly.
Great. So were you just fed up with being a cop and you're like, okay, I want to pursue acting 100%, or did it just kind of happen naturally, or was it a conscious decision to?
Well, I left the police force in 2014. And it was several different factors that contributed. But at the end of the day, I just started to realize that it just wasn't the right fit for me. Because I studied criminology and psychology, so I was interested in the human psyche and how someone becomes criminal, what the process is and what are the factors, and, in terms of society and growing up, etc. And we didn't really have time to deal with the perpetrators, the offenders.
Right.
You deal with the crime, you question them, and then you send your report to the courts, and that's it, or to the DA's office. And that started to get to me more and more, because my interrogations were always 2 to 3 hours longer than everyone else's, because I had a million questions. I was interested in the person and their history, and that just is not always relevant for, I don't know, shoplifting. I thought it was relevant.
You're like, how was your relationship with your grandmother?
I wanted to know. And profiling was not that big yet at home in Switzerland at the time, because it's a good thing. We didn't have high-profile crimes like that where you had to bring in a profiler. And so that was not really an option. And yeah, so I was interested in the human psyche, but I found out that policing was not the right thing for me. I didn't really fit into that world somehow. And then I did a whole bunch of different jobs. I mean, I did like 7 different jobs in between. And then one day my husband, who was also a police officer, he came home from work and he said, well, I want to be a helicopter pilot. That is my dream. And I said, well, sure, let's do it. And then he found a school in Calgary, and he went to do his training during the pandemic. So we were apart for 13 months. I was at home still making money. And I was working at the DA's office at the time and doing translations for them. And then he did his training, and then he got a job in Toronto, and then I came over here. And when I got over here, I was like, well, it's now or never. I've quote unquote wasted enough time and ran away from it for so long and tried out a million different jobs to talk myself into a steady lifestyle. Yeah. Something that's secure and something that's reliable. And at some point I just knew, well, I can't avoid it any longer. And here we are.
Nothing was filling the acting void.
No, for sure. Yeah.
I love that. It was a calling.
Oh.
So when you arrive here, what's your strategy for networking or like getting to know? I know you did like online courses and in the States in that strategically because you're half American. But in the industry here, was there any thought as to like, I'm going to do American online courses because as soon as like the pandemic, like the rules lighten up, then I'll do like things around here? Or did you have a plan, or were we just winging it?
Well, I wanted to get into community theater here, regional theater here during the pandemic, but everything was
Yeah.
there were no opportunities really. And our idea was always to move to the US once he has enough hours
Right.
as a pilot, simply because because I have the passport.
Yeah.
And the industry is just, it's bigger. That's just a fact in the various cities. And so I would say that was a little bit my mistake. I don't want to call it a mistake because just
Your
because,
learning experience?
yes, a learning, there you go, a gem, yes. A miracle. I turned it into a miracle. No. It was just, I geared all my, I was focused on the US markets. And then the pandemic ended and I did some theater here and I started to do little short films and projects around the city. And now, 3 years after moving here, we've decided to stay here for the time being. Yeah.
Totally unbiased.
But it kind of left me with, okay, I should have done a lot more.
I feel like you do the most.
Well, I just feel like if I had known, or no, how should I put this? I think you have to network in the city that you're in. And if you're planning to go somewhere else at some point, then start
to branching
out. But I think it's really important to first network in the city that you're in, because you also never know where people are going to end up.
That's true.
And where, what opportunities will open. And so I think it's really important to get to know your peers and the people who are 2 steps ahead of you within your city where you're living at the moment. And I think that's kind of where I went a little bit wrong. It was an experience either way. Now I have a lot of connections in other markets, and that's great too. But I have some time to catch up now in Toronto, for sure.
I shook my head no to camera for those listening, only because you've networked so much. From my perspective, you've networked so much. You did the Stranger Things and met a whole bunch of actors and people through that. You did comedy classes, right?
Yeah, I took
at Second City?
improv and stand-up at Second City.
At Second City, met a whole bunch of people there, and has been on a bunch of projects, met a whole bunch more people. This girl's silly. You fool. But she wants to know all of Toronto.
Yeah. Open house on Friday. No.
It's got a couple more 100,000 people to do. That's great.
Shoot for the stars.
That's right. I need everyone's name. So you took classes at Second City for improv and comedy, you just said, right?
Yes.
How did you like that?
I've really enjoyed it. I haven't gotten very far. I know that I want to continue taking more classes. The stand-up was a wild ride. I never thought that I would do that. And it's just incredible what you can draw from your own life.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a very good, whether you choose to pursue it or not, as a career or as a hobby, whatever, I just think it's a really good way of shifting your focus and seeing the funny in things, because we forget that so often.
Yeah.
And it was great. I mean, we had a show, and then we had like a showcase at the end where you could invite friends and family, and it was just a really fun, uplifting, great experience, to do your first show like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed that.
Supportive, audience.
Exactly.
Too. You're not just
exactly.
and now we feed you to the wolves. Good luck.
Good luck.
Hope you don't bomb.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? There's something else I wanted to talk about. Oh, community theater. Getting into community theater here. Did you just Google what community theater was around and then just started auditioning, or was it strategic, you wanted to do certain plays?
It was kind of Googling and checking out a lot of different options. I am a member at the Alumni Theater, and they have a great part on their website where they have lots of different links to other websites where auditions are posted or casting calls. And so, I auditioned for a whole bunch of things through that. And because the idea was just to get to know people and to be on stages.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to go with the flow with what's being offered, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, most plays have good roles in them, interesting roles, and it's always what you do with it. So I think you can, out of every production, you can create something really amazing. And it was just important for me to get out and to be on stages, be amongst people, because after 2 years, I mean, we were all in the pandemic, you know, after several years of sitting indoors, it's just nice to get out and play with someone, a human being, and not just someone on a Zoom screen.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's kind of, yeah.
Nice. And you have a play that you're in now? Are you in rehearsals? Are you?
No, we start the end of November.
Start at the end of November, and then when are shows?
Mid-February to the beginning of March.
Mid-February to the beginning of
the
March.
Toronto Irish
So the
Players.
auditions for that were early then?
Yeah.
Holy crap. Because when did you audition for those? That was...
It was about a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts.
Well, it was a play with 15
women. Yeah.
So
Nuts.
I'm guessing they wanted to have
I've
a
never
bit of
heard of such a
buffer.
thing.
What? the drama?
15 women? What on earth were they talking about?
It's only going to be drama. Yeah, no. No, I'm really looking forward. I'm just guessing they wanted to have a bit of buffer
Just
in case they don't find. You know,
that's true.
Yeah.
So they had that after the pandemic. I feel like a lot of people were just slow coming back to like doing theater or being comfortable to be on stage and spit in somebody else's face. So yeah,
Wonderful
that's fair.
experience,
Because that was. So you start at the end of November, and then shows will be February and March.
Yes.
What's it called? I forget the name.
It's called The Unmanageable Sisters.
The Unmanageable Sisters.
Yeah.
At Toronto Irish Players.
Toronto Irish Players, and it'll be at the Alumni Theater. Their
Amazing.
Performances. Yeah, I'm excited.
Link will be below.
Yes.
You just signed with Take 4 Talent.
I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So exciting.
Yes.
So you, going in for the interview with a new agent, what kind of questions do you ask them, and what is important to you in an agent?
For me, it's really important to know, how do they communicate, and how do they like to communicate? Or, you know, what they expect from you as an actor. It was important to me, and she had a very interesting answer. I asked her, one of the questions was, what roles would you put me up for? And she said, well, I don't know, because I don't know you yet. And I loved that answer, because I always feel like we get put into a box just based on our...
Like what you look like.
Yeah. What
Just
you
like
see is what you
women
get.
of
And
authority.
I mean, after a 30-minute conversation, you have an idea of a person, but you need to get to know them first. Where could you see them? What kind of roles? What kind of shows?
Yeah.
So I loved that answer. I think a lot of, for me, it was important just to get her vibe and see if we click, for me, humor is very important. If I connect with someone through humor, then we're golden.
Yeah.
If we're just, staring at each other and monotone and blah, 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 then thank you very much. But we had a really wonderful conversation about the industry and what's out there, and what it's important, of course, to know, what kind of connections does the agent have, for them too, to know, or do you already have some relationships with casting directors, like what kind of roles do you go out for? Trying to think of all the questions that I asked her. I had a whole bunch. Also, you want to know, do they have someone on their roster who looks like you, in the same age range? How do they pitch you? And then all the contractual stuff comes later. Then you just have to, figure that out. But I think the most important thing is if you have the same kind of vision, and if they're willing to take on a client who, I've built my resume, but they're still small credits. They're not on big network television yet. And it's really important to know, are they willing to put in the work to help you as a so-called developmental client to build your career with you? And How big is their roster? Are they going to have the time to spend with you? This is a boutique agency, which I really appreciate because you know that she has, you know, not a million people on her roster, and she's really going to put in the time.
Yeah.
And is really interested and invested in you and your career. And I think that really needs to come across. Like, are you just another number on their list?
Yeah.
Or are you someone that they're really interested in?
So you just starred in a indie film, an indie horror film. Was that your first lead role in it's a feature film, right?
Yes.
Was that your first lead in a feature?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Tell me everything. How did you get the audition? Was it you were submitted, or did you find it
I was
online?
I was submitted by my agent, my manager, excuse me.
Right.
That was in January. We shot that. And that was through Casting Workbook.
Okay.
The audition came in. Yeah. And I already loved the audition because it's a very vulnerable character who's been through a lot. I often go out for the wounded woman, and she's definitely a wounded woman. And the story is that she gets invited to her daughter's wedding, and the ceremony is via Zoom. And it's an indie horror feature.
And then hell breaks loose, clearly.
And it was just a very, very cool shoot because we were all in the same house, in different rooms, going through the same process at the same, the same experience.
Scene,
yeah. And it was, we shot it almost like a theater piece because we went through, you know, at any given take, we went through 20 to 30 scenes because it was all in the same room, you know,
right.
we were all on Zoom.
Yeah.
And it was a very cool experience.
That's wicked.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Ooh.
I loved it. Great team and cast and crew. It was really very lovely.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's wicked. Yay. And that comes out soon?
Yes.
Wicked,
yes,
wicked. Link in bio. Link below. You mentioned that you had a manager. You had your manager first. How did you apply to get a manager? And because I know he's like on the West Coast, right?
Yes. How did I find him? I think through a friend of mine, an active friend of mine who's in Denver, based in Denver. She's represented by him. And that's how I started following him on Instagram. And I really loved how he celebrates the wins of his clients. And he has a very interesting quotes that he posts, very uplifting and very inspiring. And I just it was a gut reaction. I thought, oh, yeah, this kind of person I would probably want to work with. And then I just went, after months and months of following him, I went on his website and just checked out, you know, how he likes to receive submissions. And I sent him my resume and headshots and a link to my demo reel and I believe a self-tape. Because I think that's really important that they could see your setup. They could see what you're working with.
Right. Oh, that's a good
what
idea.
you're generally, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we went through a several-step process just to figure out if we're on the same page in terms of expectations and knowing, you know, what does a manager do versus what does an agent do, and that just, it was very clear what he does and what he doesn't do.
Right.
And it was just I like that. Clear communication. I mean,
straightforward up front.
Yeah.
I love the straightforward
no
up front.
bullshit. I mean, if you know what you're working with, then there's no guessing games. And I think that's the best way to be able to collaborate like that. And in the end it worked out. And
nice. That's awesome. Do you have any creative endeavors or other hobbies that keep you creative outside of acting, or do you just do acting to, like, what's your method? No, I'm just kidding. Do you have any creative endeavors outside of acting?
Well, writing.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Speaking of writing, what an interesting segue.
Well, we could start with baking. I bake.
Oh, yes.
I love to bake.
Oh, my God. The best Macarons.
Macarons.
So how do you say that?
Macarons.
Macarons.
French macarons.
So
Yeah,
good.
the
So
bane
good.
of my existence. They are so hard to make, especially with my oven, which is unreliable up the wazoo. Yeah, it's not. Can you even say that? Unreliable up the wazoo?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I'm with it. I understood completely.
Let's trademark it.
Wazoo.
I mean, it just, you
Yeah.
know, for the meringue, it has to be a consistent temperature, and that thing goes up and down and all around. It's like PMSing, or I don't know what. You're probably not supposed to say that.
Hot flashes.
Yes,
Evan
there we
gets
go.
hot flashes.
I did
That's
not mean it in a
hilarious.
disrespectful way. I am the worst. But yeah, it goes in all directions, and so it's a lovely endeavor, I'll say. But sometimes
Yeah.
it breaks my heart the amount of spoiled or bad or just not beautiful macarons I've had to throw away, ruined ones. Yeah.
And I ate the beautiful ones.
You do. Oh, and you eat them beautifully too. She's just so
delicate.
Yes. Classy.
No, right?
Yep.
So you mentioned writing earlier.
Yes.
So you wrote, directed, produced a one-woman show that was an hour long.
Yep.
Why? No, just kidding. I'm kidding. What made you want to do? What made you want to do?
What is the meaning of your existence?
Yeah. Why are you here? No. What made you want to do a one-woman show?
I didn't. I mean, I signed up for. Well, I have to backtrack a little bit. Because I have a work permit, I can't get a CAFCO number in Canada, which you need for bigger productions. And so I kind of got on the track of, or I just figured out that I have to create my own content and create my own opportunities, potentially if we decide to stay here, because I might not be able to do the bigger productions.
Right.
Not being able to get those roles, because I did in the beginning when we moved here, I wanted to sign with an agent, and then that question came up, do you have a CAFCO number? And I said no, and they said, well, I'm sorry.
Oh, damn.
We can't, basically, yeah. Deflated that dream. And so it took me a while to go for it again. And so then I decided, or I figured out that I have to create my own content, and I found a casting director she's based in Atlanta, Kathy Reinking, and she offers classes for actors who want to create their own content. And so I took this Zoom class with her, and the first class we did a writing prompt. She just gave us, forget what it was, and we had to write for 3 minutes, and then we read it, and she's like, oh, okay, you're going to write your solo show.
Okay.
I was like, okay. It's like, I don't even know what that is. But sure.
She told me to. Yes,
Martina Google's solo show. Yes, I'm totally outing myself as I have no idea what I'm doing.
That's how the best things are made.
Yeah. And so, from week to week, I continued to write and build on this one journal prompt. And then it turned into 25 minutes, which I performed then. I went to Atlanta and I performed that last December. And then I came back and I was like, well, this is great. I got a lot of good feedback. I said, well, what am I going to do with this now? It's 25 minutes. So I thought, what the hell? I'll sign up for Fringes. And I never win anything. No bingo, no Uno, no bridge, no games, or where they pick your number, lottery, forget it. Martina never wins anything. And so I signed up for 5 Fringes, and I got into 3 of them, and I was like, oh, okay. I guess the universe is telling me something.
You only win when it's important.
When it's important. There you go. And so I thought, okay, well, that means I should be doing this. So I had a deadline. I went with 2 of them, and I had to finish the show because I signed up with a 60-minute show, and I only had 25 minutes. So I worked with a coach and continued writing and shaping the show, and it just got bigger and bigger, and I ended up producing and performing it in Toronto and at the Denver Fringe and in Alabama. booked to do the show there. And it was great. It was an incredible experience. And I would never, if you had said that a year ago, I would have been like, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Me, a solo show, you know?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah. And it just kind of happened. So it was a very cool experience. Yeah.
That's so wicked.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that. For those who don't know, what is a Cavco number?
Cavco number is, you can only get that if you have PR card or Canadian citizenship. And it basically allows productions to get a tax cut. So if they hire more people with that number, with that eligibility, then they get higher benefits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then it's ideal for productions to hire people with Cavco. Excellent. So I see that you were in a brief instance in 2021.
Yes.
It's a short film.
Yes.
Was that your first Canadian project here?
Yes, it was.
COVID?
Yes, it was. Yeah. Yep.
Nice. Was it a small role? Was it just like a
it was
an indie project?
It was supporting role, and it was my first film like on set experience in a speaking role. So that was really fun to do. Yeah.
Oh, special place in your heart forever.
Yes.
I love that. It's so cute. But you've done like at least a credit every single year, plus your community theater, plus Stranger Things and Haunted House. You're just constantly doing acting things.
Yes.
So when you're like, oh, I'm not doing anything, I need to do harder, I'm over here like, shut up. You're doing the damn thing.
Allison.
Just know you're doing the damn thing.
Thank you.
Because then it was Close Call 2022, and then Invited 2023. It's coming out really soon. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a time where you've made a big mistake on set, or you had an embarrassing moment as a new actor on set that keeps you up at night?
That keeps me up at night?
No, just like it could be like a funny, embarrassing thing that you're just like, I laugh about it now, or it could be like,
Well, I did some background acting because that was like the coolest thing for us when we moved here, and you would walk the streets because my husband and I go on a lot of walks and just explore, and to see film sets everywhere. That was like best thing ever. And then it was really funny. We walked past this one street and they had a film set there, and I said to him, I was like, I want to do this. And the next week I signed up with background agents, and the next week I was on that actual street, Toronto Street, doing being a holiday shopper for some Christmas movie.
Love.
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna soak it all in, and I'm gonna ask all these questions and figure out how the industry works. And then I saw this person buzzing around, giving us instructions and this and that. And then when it was like a quiet moment, I was like, so are you a PA?
Oh, no.
And she looked at me and she's like, no, I'm the second AD. I was like, oh.
Of course you are, and a good job you're doing.
Can I have a newbie stamp? Right on my forehead?
In New Year.
Yeah, it was really funny. And I felt bad because they put in a lot of work to get there, right? And then someone's like, are you the production assistant? Nothing, I don't mean to shade at all the production assistant. Yeah. It was just a funny moment because I thought I'd figured it out.
So funny.
I knew who was doing what.
At least it wasn't like the director.
Yeah.
It's like, I actually am the reason why you're here, and now you're leaving. Goodbye. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
What's the hardest thing for you about being an actor? Or does it just come so naturally to you? No, either about like performing or just like the acting lifestyle.
I think the imposter syndrome. Because and I've read a lot about big actors, that it never goes away, and that whenever you step on set, you feel like you have no idea what you're doing. and that they're going to regret that they hired you.
Yeah.
They're going to figure out that you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the hardest thing, in addition to the fluctuations, the ebb and flow of the industry.
Yeah.
Because for me now, I have 3 jobs in addition to acting, and they're all kind of, their ebbs and flows. There's no consistency, and then of course everything comes at the same time. And I think that's really hard too, is being organized enough to account for the last minute auditions.
Right.
And then still be centered and still give a good performance without worrying about all the other stuff that you got to get done. So I think that's the hardest part, is just staying focused and not going crazy.
Yeah.
And not letting the camera pick up on that. She's actually insane.
We hired a real
As we
serial
cackle.
killer.
Yeah.
So what do you do in those moments of when you feel imposter syndrome creeping in? Do you have any practices that you do, or pep talks, or anything that you try to?
Well, I remind myself that everyone goes through this.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a human thing, regardless of the industry.
Yeah.
Because I had it in all my other jobs too, and I know, I did not invent it, so I know others people have it too. That's one thing. Then I'm also in 2 mindset groups where we focus on that, and we have kind of like a community. So when we kind of fall into that hole, we can, let others know and help.
Are those just through social media mindset groups?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And I think that's very valuable. Because we get swept up sometimes in the, I don't want to say negativity, but in the lack mentality, and we think we can't do it and we're not good enough, and I think that's very valuable to have that. I don't have like a process in place yet. I'm still working on that. I think the awareness was the biggest thing for me, to realize that I always get to that one point, and now I'm working on how to change it effectively. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, I love that. And so the mindfulness, the groups that you're on, is that like Instagram or Facebook? Just if anybody wants to know.
I found this coach on Instagram. It's Actors Encouraged is her page. And she has like a mindset group on there. And you do pay a monthly membership fee, and it's really wonderful because she does coaching, and we have like today we have an accountability call where you can really, it's just all like-minded people who are going through the same exact thing in different variations, in different places in their career. And it's really great to just support each other and to have that community, because I think that's the most important thing as an actor. Even if you're a complete introvert, like myself, it doesn't sound like it here, but I am. It is really good to have that support network
And just know that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Like that's key. Like I find like in those moments of like starting to spiral down into whatever you're going through, it's knowing that you're not alone in it. So yeah, that community of people, that's really great.
Yeah.
Link below. So what are you manifesting next for yourself? Is there any specific kind of project that you want to do, or
Law and Order Toronto?
Oh, that would be so good.
That would be so good.
That would be so good. You'd be so good.
I would love to do that.
I endorse.
That is definitely.
That'd be wicked.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be really cool to do that.
100%. I could definitely see one. Yeah. And I mean, like, right up your alley.
Totally. Totally.
You've got the talent and the background in actually working.
Yeah.
In the field.
And it would be cool to.
We're gonna turn this into a commercial. Where you should be on Law and Order.
No, I love the Mayor of Easttown is one of my favorite roles, Kate Winslet, because it's not the typical police officer detective that we see on TV.
Right.
Because the whole spectrum of humanity is in the police force too.
Yeah.
I mean, like in any industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really cool to see that there are broken humans too, and they're not just a facade of, you know, law and order.
Yeah.
Essentially, that they also have all the whole,
So she would bring depth to the role, is what we're saying.
Just saying.
She ready. Take 4 talent. Her name's Martina. Schabron. Okay. My last question for you is, what do you think is getting in your way of making it to the next level, whatever the next level looks like for you?
My brain. Yeah.
10 out of 10?
Yes.
10 out of 10, can relate.
Yeah. Just getting in my head. I'm really working a lot on like the mind-body connection right now, and presence and awareness and stillness in my acting. We often like make it a whole thing when it's just a part of a human's life on camera. And that's not always a huge spectacle.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be very deep and a very, you know, a big conflict, but it's not always, it doesn't have to be that much going on.
Like it can be subtle.
Yeah. And just being in that, and I think that's very difficult because I'm very much in my head a lot of the time with everything. If it's the art, you know, the craft or the business side of acting, going more with my gut would help me a lot, I think, rather than trying to plan it and be strategic and controlling.
Just feeling it.
Because that's what we do as actors, right? And then we shut that down
Yeah.
when it comes to acting.
What's my eyeline? And what is my motivation?
Yeah.
Why am I saying this? I forget why I'm saying this.
What's
You're
the
just
conflict?
asking him.
Yeah. Do you
the
want more
weather.
coffee?
Yeah. But why? So we like to finish off our podcast with fast 5 questions.
Ooh.
What is your favorite candy?
Chocolate.
Chocolate.
I'm Swiss. I mean,
It's true. Do you like the chocolate here? Is the chocolate here garbage? Be honest.
not if it's Lind.
That's fair.
Or
That's fair.
Toblerone.
Oh, yes.
No, I actually do like Hershey's chocolate.
Okay.
Yeah, it's much
Sue
too.
her.
Yeah, I mean, so many of my.
Disowned by all of Switzerland.
They're always like, "Oh, it's terrible," and I'd like it. So, what can I say?
You heard it here first, folks.
I like cheap chocolate.
Me too. Name 3 on-set must-haves.
Water, earphones, tissues.
Nice. Favorite guilty pleasure TV show or movie?
Bridgerton.
Yes. A quote you live by or try to live by?
Creativity takes courage. And the second one is I didn't come this far to only come this far. My husband says that one all the time, and I really think it's, you know, we've been through a lot of hardships since we got here. I mean, hardships. It's just not been an easy ride.
Yeah.
And there's always the temptation to say, well, let's go back to our cushy life at home. But we didn't come this far to only come this far. So let's keep going. Allison, that's why we have the tissues.
That's why we have the tissues on set. And my last question is a piece of advice for other creatives who are just starting out in their acting journey. Or, better way to phrase it, what would you tell your younger self about the actor's journey?
You have to figure it out yourself. There's so much advice out there, and it's really easy to get caught up in going on all directions, and you have to trust your gut, which is really hard if you don't know what the answer is or what the right answer is, because there is no right answer. So you just really have to start somewhere and just keep going. And you're going to make mistakes. That's just how it is. That's life. And it's not any different in the industry. So you just have to start and then keep going.
Because you didn't come this far, it only
Come this far.
Ooh, I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I had a splendid time.
Me too. My first podcast.
Yay!
Very exciting.
I love
Thank you.
it. My pleasure. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next podcast.